Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Guys, welcome back to the Manly Mission podcast. This is episode 11 with your host Farhan Rana. So, I have a bit of a interesting topic today. Initially, it's coming from my most recent experience at Umrah, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a minor pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia, which you can make at any point during the year, and it's just a excuse me, it's just a really good way to get reconnected with your faith and to really revitalize that aspect of your life. So I'll talk more about that, but I'm pairing my experience and doing a bit of storytelling on that with this idea which I've had in my archives, so to speak, about what it means to be a spiritually grounded man and how do you cultivate that and what are the barriers or what are the forces that are counteracting becoming that kind of man. So it will be a bit of not off the cuff necessarily, but I do have some points, and I'll be talking about those. But I'll try to weave in my experience at Umrah as much as I can to give more context to what I'm speaking to. So first of all, uh, I want to talk about this notion or this idea that the modern era or modern society in general, especially in the West, it's increasingly moved away from religion or notions of objective truth or morality as a whole. And that's stating the obvious for a lot of people. You can see that if you have some uh, bearing or you have some idea of what's going on and you're walking in society with your eyes wide open, so to speak, you'll see this. It's just in popular culture, in terms of like how people conversate with each other, um, even in terms of like the products and the services that are offered. They kind of lean toward this idea where they're fulfilling your physical and your sort of animalistic desires, but they don't at all even acknowledge the fact that you have a spiritual side, which I'll talk about more later. Um, so something that we can notice is that there's a deterioration of rituals, of codes of conduct, and not doing stuff just because you feel like it. Not to say that you can't have an enjoyable life, not to say that you can't have good time with your family and friends and not be so serious all the time. That's not the point I'm making. What I'm trying to say is that if you walk in life with this primary objective of like, I want to feel good, I want to feel happy. I want to feel satisfied. I want to feel loved. I want to feel acknowledged. If you walk around with that kind of mentality and mindset, that's coming from how society portrays what is the ultimate uh, objective of life is to feel good, essentially. I mean, I'm not anyone who you won't really disagree with me on this. That's just how it is. So, just to kind of contrast this with what I saw at Umrah, uh, so when you go there, for anyone who has been, or if you can kind of imagine what I'm going to be talking about, you go to a country or a landscape which is it's not so it's a desert. I'm trying to put this in like more dramatic terms, but to state it very obviously, it's a desert. In this desert, you have two holy sites. One is obviously the direction of worship, which is the house of God in Mecca, and the other is the resting place of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his mosque around his tomb, essentially. So I mean, just that notion of why people even visit these places in the first place, it goes against what you would see in terms of like fulfilling your ultimate desire if you accept it as such, as I just want to feel good. Not to say that when you go there and you actually are very intentional about what you're doing, you're praying, you're revisiting your faith, you're learning about what Islam really is, and you're really getting in touch with the history of what happened during the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. You really get in touch with that. Not to say that doesn't revitalize and you feel good in that sense, but it's fulfilling a spiritual need, not a physical one necessarily. So we'll be talking about that a bit more later. And when you're in that kind of environment, you'll if you went in there with this idea of like, I just want to do what I want to do, I don't care where I am, you would be looked at weirdly if you were not going to pray, if you weren't going where the people were going to like do the rituals, or if you didn't greet people with the Islamic greeting of Assalamu alaikum or peace be upon you, and you were just like, I don't care what people think about me. If you did that in that kind of environment, it just wouldn't fly. Like at the least, you would feel bad. At the most, someone would be like, "What's wrong with you?" My point with saying all of this is that in certain areas, and you can apply this to your own tradition, your own religion, whether it's like Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, whatever you ascribe to, or what your family has, practiced for the past couple of generations. You can probably understand where I'm coming from. There are certain places in the world and certain environments where spirituality is a focus. It's about uplifting your spirit and becoming a more holistic person, not just someone who's the only difference between them and an animal, to put it very frankly, I'm just going to put it bluntly, is the fact that you have a thinking mind. Besides that, you're not that different from an animal. That's not the point when it comes to spiritual places and spiritual environments. They're trying to help you remember that you're actually more than that. So, coming to the second point, notions of absolute morality and duty to God or to the divine are seen as outdated and oppressive. Now, this one, once you actually give it some thought and you actually kind of dig into this a little bit deeper, you'll see why this is just wrong, plain and simple. So, the best way to kind of understand this is that the replacement for what um, religion, to put it very broadly, when you look at the results that have been produced from the replacement, which is basically a liberal, materialistic society which focuses on personal, individual fulfillment at the expense of spiritual fulfillment, it only is more nonsensical and even oppressive because it separates and divorces your physical reality from your spiritual reality. That's just how it is, because it's not addressing the essence of who we are. We are spiritual beings with spiritual needs. If you understand this, if you believe it, and if you know it, and you could deny this. You could be like, oh, I'm just like a bunch of neurons and a bunch of blood cells that's just like in this bag of skin. You know that's not true. You just know that's not true. Like, I could give you proofs, I could give you evidences, but like you just need to sit with yourself and just understand that this can't be it. This physical reality that I'm in is not it. There has to be a cause for everything, and this is getting more into uh, understanding why there's a creator and all of that. I don't want to really go there, but the point I'm trying to make is that there are spiritual needs which can only be fulfilled from spiritual sources, which is going to be the divine. However you understand it, that's just plain and simple. Spiritual needs fulfilled by a spiritual source that cannot be and will never be fulfilled by a physical source. And my invitation or my advice to you would be to really revisit your own tradition, whether it's even Muslim, um, to really understand what is this all about. The rituals and practices and all these things that I'm supposed to do or that my family does. Where does it even come? What does it do for a person? Now, in Islam, we understand that if something is a commandment or it's an obligation, the reason why we do it is because Allah, God, told us to do it. Like, that's a very simple kind of axiom, I guess you could say. Someone could correct me on this point, but that's just how we understand it. It's because He said so. We'll do it. But the reason that some of the wisdoms that come out of it is that it's fulfilled spiritual needs. So, take for example, what I did with my family. We went to Umrah, and there are certain rituals and practices that you're supposed to do, especially in Mecca. You're supposed to go around the house 7 times. You're supposed to run between two hills. And while these may seem very physical, even physically demanding activities, is what I want to get at. The reason why they're done is because of history, because of what previous prophets did in the original environment. But they also remind us of our dependence on God. And to me, what really struck out to me, especially when I was in Mecca, it reminds me of what life looks like for us when you take a bird's eye view of what's going on. People are running around their gods, to put it very simply, whether that's materialism, whether that's feeling good, whatever the case may be. Your life is revolving around a certain object of worship. Like, that's just if you look at it deeply, that's just what you're doing. Why not make it? I don't want to be putting my faith on anyone. That's not the whole point of it. But what I'm trying to get at is, you have to understand this notion of yourself, that you are revolving your life around something, and you just need to understand that if it's physical, if it's like individual, well, you need to understand that that's not going to fulfill you in any way. This is how it is. And coming back to this point of religion being nonsensical, oppressive, or outdated, when I was struggling with this notion initially in high school and then even a little bit in college, the way if I take my own advice of revisiting my own tradition, the way I came to understand how Islam is in particular was not this way, was understanding the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Like the way he was, who he was, what was his mission, what was he all about? How did he create change in his society? How did he influence people? How did he uplift the oppressed? And how did he stand with justice? All of these lessons and notions. When I understood what that was all about, and how it actually catered to the spiritual needs of a person very deeply, that's when I was like, this can't be outdated. If I'll get to this in a little bit, but this can't be oppressive if looked at in the right way. If you're coming back to this point again, because I think a lot of people struggle with this, or they're fixated on this primary objective of life, and they don't really take a step back. If you judge everything by like, what is this doing for me in terms of my feelings, my own aspirations, my own desires, is this furthering my own personal objectives, or is this demanding something of me that, whether I recognize it or not, is fulfilling a part of me which I have neglected for so long? If that's your marker, then obviously you're going to see something which demands sacrifice, which demands patience, which demands giving up for others or for other people or giving charity. You'll see these things as oppressive. Or I mean, you can make the point that, I don't understand it. I don't understand why people do X, Y, Z. I don't understand why Muslims pray. I don't understand why we're supposed to fast, or we're supposed to give charity, or we're supposed to stand up for people. I don't understand it, so it's oppressive. That's just very, very, how do I want to put it? Very base level thinking. And I don't mean to offend. So it's so funny. Like, my point is to really hammer these ideas. So I don't care if you get too offended, as long as you get the point across and you understand where I'm coming from. And coming to the next point, which I have on here, if you just understand this one point, I think I think you'll get the point of what I'm trying to say. Religions in general have persisted for a long time because they gave meaning and purpose to people, as one of their very functional roles. That's what an organized religion does. And logically, anything which stands the test of time, it means it has some importance. It means it has some kind of gravity to what it's all about. If something just came up yesterday and was just popping off on social media, we would say it's like a fad or like a trend or something that the young kids are doing or whatever. We wouldn't really take it too seriously. But something that's been like in place for like thousands of years, you'll be like, okay, like that's something that has value, and something that, if I consider it and if I see the value in it, yeah, that could do something for me. And the same thing goes with books, ideas, personalities, their ideas and their teachings, which have endured for a long time. Maybe there's something in there, maybe not all of it, but maybe there's something in there which I can take value from. And when we look at the last, like, honestly, even 10 years, 10, 15 years since the early 2000s, the notions, ideas, and uh, kind of paradigms that have come in place, they're only so new, and they're not even useful, or not even catering to what we're all about as human beings. So it's really about understanding that, and understanding that the way we live today, in terms of our mentality, in terms of how we see things, when compared to the long stretch of history, is an abnormality, and it's not even good for us. So I mean, it just goes to show that we have to take a step back in our own lives and understand that there is a part of us that is just yearning for nourishment, spiritual nourishment, and we need to find ways to really cater to that. Because if we don't do that, I mean, the results are obvious: depression, just people feeling directionless, and I'll get to men in particular. Just this lack of ambition, lack of feeling that there's something more that you can fight for, something greater than yourself that you can actually live for. Um, whether it's your family, whether it's your religion, whether it's just having your sense of community, something that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning instead of feeling nihilistic and be like, oh, there's no point to this. I can't get the girl, I can't make the money, I can't get the job, or like get the body, so it's pointless. As long as it doesn't fulfill me, is no point. I've said this in a previous maybe YouTube comment, or maybe even said in a video. If you the first step to actually getting out of this self-absorbed bubble that you're in is to understand that people's lives are not perfect. Once you understand that, once you internalize that, it's not just your own life. People's lives are not perfect. That means that if you have some kind of knowledge, some kind of guidance, some kind of resource that you can give to other people, that's your first step of feeling valuable in life. And this could be done in the very early stages, obviously, from a place of pure selfishness. You could be like, I just want to feel a little better about my place in life, and that's why I'm going to help this person, whether it's a younger brother, or it's your elder, or it's a member of your community who's going through something hard. You could do it for a very selfish reason in the very beginning, but once you graduate in the levels of feeling more, understanding what your place is in society and what really matters to you, you'll get the sense of like, okay, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to look out for each other. We're supposed to uplift each other. We're supposed to make sacrifices. That's just how it is. And you'll slowly and gradually start taking a step back from being the self-absorbed little person, and you can just expect yourself to be a greater man after that. So this is going to be specific. So what I'm gonna do now is give you 3 ways in which Islam specifically helps create a spiritually grounded man. So I would invite anyone who's not Muslim to, really understand this, and uh, maybe see how, if you do practice a religion of your own, see if there's parallels, because a lot of these, I think, are notions that we can commonly agree upon. They're not they're specific in terms of what Islam tells us to do, but I think it appeals to a lot of people. So I would invite you to listen to this. So number one, of creating a spiritually grounded man, is a direct connection with God, with Allah. I mean, that's if you go back to my point about drawing from a spiritual source, the ultimate source is God Himself. I mean, and in Islam, we don't have this hierarchy or this chain where we need to go through people or through other uh, other revered personalities or whatever the case may be to get to God. It's a direct one-on-one connection. It's a one-on-one meeting at any point, whenever you want. So that's your first starting point. If you're a Muslim, that's your first starting point in being like, okay, I want to be someone who's spiritually fulfilled. The first step is to recognize and come back to God. That's just my starting point. I need to understand what He demands of me, what He's done for me in my life. Gratitude is going to be hugely important. If you're not grateful for even the simple things, like I'll show you guys this AirPods Pro case or whatever, I'm grateful for it because it allows me to listen to lectures, to podcasts on my way in the house or whatever. I'm grateful for my water bottle because it keeps me hydrated. I'm grateful for my glasses because they allow me to see when I don't have my contact lenses on. Simple things. I've listed 3 simple things that a lot of people, like in the self-development space, will tell you. List 3 things every morning, and they have to be different that you're grateful for. I just did 3 right there, and each of them, in some way, goes back to God because He is a facilitator of all of these things that come into my life. In one way or another, He is the creator of all of these things. So that's the first step. You need to understand that your life is not you didn't come on, and this is like so basic, like you didn't create yourself. You are not the creator of your own circumstance. There is someone, there is a deity that created all of this, and He's the one that you need to turn back to and understand that He requires some things of you, and the things He requires of you are only for your own benefit, because He doesn't need you. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need any of his creation because he is self sufficient. That's what a God in the true sense of the word really means. He is self sufficient. Anything that he dictates for us, on the premise that he is all good, is only good for us. So that's the first step. Second, connecting with other spiritually minded and grounded men. And this, I think, is probably going to be a bit of a difficult step depending on where you are in your stage of life. If you're someone in your late teens, early 20s, you could make the effort to find people in your high school, in your college, in your local community. There's guys around your age who have this spiritual inclination. I'm not saying they have to be perfect or anything, but people who are on your similar values, and you can create this little tribe or this little community of people, of guys who are doing the right things or who uplift each other or who just talk about these notions. I mean, even talking about some of this stuff is like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Like, I have to do my own thing. I don't have time for this. So if you can find even one person, a brother who can you can talk to and be like, okay, like this, I just want to understand what is required of me. I'm struggling with this idea of really fulfilling and nourishing my soul. If you can find even one person like that, that's a huge blessing in your life. I've talked about this in a previous episode. Male friendship is so important, regardless of your faith. Even if you just want to be like, I just want to have people who are not just doing dumb stuff on Friday evenings and weekends. I just want solid people who have good habits, who are productive, who are on self development, who are doing all these great things. I just want a solid group of men. I mean, if you have that, that's a huge blessing in your life, and you must do everything in your power to protect that. In terms of making sure that the people that are part of your group, you stay accountable to them in terms of what you do, and also correct them, and also show them tough love if needed if they're slipping up. That's just how we come together as men. Um, we give each other that honest feedback. That's how we're supposed to do it. Number three, taking up manly roles. So this could be um, in your personal life. Obviously, the first step is going to be obviously taking responsibility for what's going on in your life. If you can't even acknowledge that, if you're just playing the victim in all of this, if you're just like, yeah, the reason why I'm single is because I don't know, my parents did this one thing to me in my childhood, and that's why I'm single. Or I can't get a good body because I have poor genetics, and I'm brown, or like I'm South Asian, so I can't do it. If you can't even take like responsibility for your own life, I mean, just start there. That's gonna take you from 0 to at least 70 in terms of improving your life. You'll see that much of a difference. Take responsibility for what's going on in your life, and that's the first manly role that you can take. And it'll improve your own life first and foremost. But then other people will be like, yeah, he's kind of changed. He actually does what he says he's gonna do. He actually takes responsibility. He actually helps out around the house. He actually does care for me when I'm going through a low point. He's not just like self-absorbed playing video games and just singing, just doing his own thing. He doesn't care about anyone. And all of these 3 points I've mentioned, I'm a work in progress in all of them. I'm not saying I'm like the perfect exemplar of any of these. I can't say that. What I can say is that in terms of what you should be doing and what I should be doing, these are going to be the first three steps of really creating what going to call a spiritually grounded man. And I think I put this in the title of the video as well. But I thought of it as an oasis in the desert, kind of playing on the idea that I went to Umrah and it's in the desert, and you probably get that. So oasis in a desert, what does that actually mean? That's kind of what I'm going at. Yeah, so I won't talk too much about manly roles. I think I kind of gave you a summary of what that entails. And I told you the first step, if you're struggling with any of this, is just take responsibility for your own life. And you won't even need me to tell you what to do after that point, because once you do that, it will just disperse into all areas of your life and be like, okay, I can improve on this. I've been lazy here. I can fix that. I haven't been focusing on this in terms of my finance. Maybe I can take account of that. You'll just like it'll spread into all areas of your life. Um, so that's the first starting point in all of this. So I'm gonna wrap it up there, honestly, guys. And the main takeaway, I mean, there were a bunch of takeaways from this podcast. And I told you, I gave you the disclaimer in the beginning. It wasn't going to be one coherent idea that I was going to try and convey. It was just going to be my perspective, my understanding of the fact that, number one, we're spiritual beings, so we need that kind of attention in our lives from spiritual sources. I mean, that's just going to be fundamental. And I also do want to say that there's only so much in terms of like, so I'll say this in your local environment, maybe your home or your community, maybe there's some changes you can make in terms of like people being so focused on materialism. Maybe you can talk to your friends like, hey, we shouldn't do that. That's not good for you if you're engaged in vices or addictions or that kind of thing. You can control that much, maybe. But when it comes to a larger society and the larger kind of environment that you're in, it's just this onslaught of ideologies and practices which are just not good for you. So you can't. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just focus on what you can do, and just really take responsibility for your own life. And if you need a way to think about this, I've already told you: be an oasis in the desert. And when you think about an oasis, like if someone doesn't know what an oasis is, it's basically just like a little pond of water, maybe some like palm trees and maybe some fruits around that place. When you think of that, you don't imagine an oasis every like 10 feet in a desert. That wouldn't be an oasis. The whole point, the whole like understanding of what an oasis is that it's so rare that when you do find it, it just nourishes you so well, and you just feel so rested when you quench your thirst, when you eat some fruit, when you take rest under a tree. You just take so much advantage from that place that you just look around you when you're in that oasis and you're like, this desert is just like, if it wasn't for this, I would have been dead if you were actually traveling in that environment. So, oh, the way to think about yourself is that I need to become that oasis in my own life. I as a man need to become that in my life for other people, because there's no way that the society around us is going to tell us like, hey, this is what you need to do. Otherwise, this whole idea I'm trying to tell you of like a desert, it wouldn't be a desert anymore. So that's just how it is. So guys, I'm gonna wrap it up right there. I think I gave you a lot of food for thought in terms of really understanding what your own responsibilities are and how you can understand this. And hopefully, my sharing of what I experienced at Umrah and my perspective on spirituality as a Muslim, I hope that was enlightening for you. Again, I don't want to impose my ideas. That's not the whole point of this. Is really just to enlighten you on what I truly believe in and to be authentic about this. Um, because if I'm coming on here as the creator and like the spokesperson for this podcast, this Manly Mission podcast, like it would be disingenuous of me to be like, yeah, just hide this very important part of me, which honestly has so much effect on my life. Like that would be so like disingenuous, and that would just be like, okay, why aren't you sharing that? If that informs every part of your life, why aren't you talking about it? So that's the whole point of this. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was enlightening. I hope that you gain some kind of inspiration, some kind of motivation to make some real changes in your life. Honestly, even like if you need like a practical actionable step, is just to reflect on the most recent um, spiritual experience, maybe in terms of your family doing things in a certain way. Just look at that maybe and be like, is there some kind of use for that? Can I practice this and maybe take a step back from what I've been doing currently in terms of fulfilling my own individual desires? So that could be something that you guys could do. So guys, I'm gonna wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for tuning in, for subscribing, for giving your all your useful comments. I really look forward to your engagement with the content I'm putting out there, because that's my barometer of A, things are going well, and B, people are actually giving me feedback on how to improve things, and um, the ideas I'm putting out there actually getting some traction in terms of like actually helping someone. So thank you so much for that. I do want to encourage you to, um, if you're looking for a workout plan, I've said this multiple times, go to my website at farhanrana.com/workout. You can get a fully fleshed out 7-day guide. Um, really use that. I might be putting out something for Ramadan specifically that's still in the works. So stay tuned about that. I do want to tell you guys to like, share, and subscribe this video. I haven't really said that too much because I've just been like I just need to get these ideas out and get comfortable with YouTube. But I'm gonna start saying that now just because I think if we create a community around each of us having our manly mission and really putting that out there in the world, I think they'll do a lot of good for not only this channel specifically, but also for the guys who need this. Maybe you weren't someone who actually considered yourself on a manly mission, but that's something that you are starting to get around to, and you're like, okay, maybe there's some value in this. Once you share this with someone, when someone else comes into this general environment, they could be like, yeah, I mean, that's something that I didn't know that this was something I had um, as something I could do in my life. So I'm gonna stop right there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning into episode 11 of the Manly Mission podcast with your host Farhan Rana. And until next time, I'll see you very soon. Assalamu alaikum.